Gurmai Agad Laska Hirlach, and you're very welcome, Minister. Hope you can catch your breath now. In August, it was announced that a new multidisciplinary primary care assessment hub for children under progressing disability services was to open in Castleknock, and that is very good news, Minister. It's very much welcomed, but it has obviously prompted a lot more communication from parents to me about the CDNT waiting list in the area. So I'm going to give you an overview of some of the examples that I have received. This is from a parent whose son is heading into secondary school. He has had one stage 1 desk-based interview. He has severe hearing loss, dyspraxia, and potentially autism. His waiting time is 37 months for a stage 2 assessment of need clinical assessment. I have an 8-year-old that's been on the waiting list for an assessment of need for a year, referred to primary care services, and is on a waiting list with no time for child psychology and a 2-year wait for OT. So this is the Dublin 15 area. Another parent, since the switch to CDNT, in 1 year, another child has seen the SLT 4 times, OT 3 times, physio twice. The SLT is left and there's no one to replace her. Under EIT, the early intervention team, her son had one-to-one therapy at least every second week, and that's in Blakestown. And then in relation to Blanchardstown, the transfer from the early intervention team, there seems to be one person that's manning the emails and the phones. And the response that I've got from a few parents is that this is the same text that they get back in emails. We've received waiting lists of children from various services, HSE, CRC, DOC, school off, school age team and beach park services, and they've amalgamated those multiple lists, and they're afraid to say the waiting list is long. The original date of referral for your child will be honoured. Currently, I'm unable to give you a time frame when they will be seen by the team. Another email said the current waiting time is 3 years, and another one said it's in excess of 3 years. This is from a parent, when we were with early intervention, we could access an OT, SLT and psychologist. They answered their phones, and if they couldn't, they get back to you within 24 hours. On EIT, we had regular phone support services with OT, psychologist, SLT, even though no diagnosis. His needs were addressed, and I felt empowered. And the question that she has is, are they still doing that? So, Minister, I'm hoping that you can give me some clarity around the transfer to EIT, to CDNT, the waiting list for these parents, what is actually happening behind the scenes. They feel their basic needs aren't being met. And I know that you hear this all the time, and I know that you are committed to changing it. They're exhausted, their families are exhausted. It boils down to resources. Where are we with resources for the CH9? Has there been a change to the HSE national panel of recruitment? Because I am asked consistently by psychologists if that issue is being addressed. These families are paying privately, and there are families from all different walks of life, all different experiences, all different socioeconomic backgrounds. One has said that they are now going to be seen by that the HSE has outsourced the assessment of need, or sorry, a multidisciplinary assessment to a private company. So is that now happening as well? Thank you.
Minister,
thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Senator, for giving me the opportunity to actually discuss CHO9. And if I just reverse a little bit back, if you don't mind, that when we started the assessment of needs back in October of 2020, one of our largest lists in the entire country was in CHO9, which meant it was one of the last lists to complete at that point in time. And at the same time, while we were completing that assessment of need process, which was the old AON now, which it wasn't a PTA or anything else like that, we got through it all. And yes, you are right, we did falter at the end. There was about 33 cases that we were really stuck on because of psychology, the complexity of it, which was within it. But we got it all cleared. And at the same time, while we were doing those assessment of needs, the reform within progressing disabilities happened and the reforming took place, which was quite challenging in your area. For the simple reason being is we actually pulled it all apart. Is the way the parents are probably saying it to you. It was all pulled apart. And then there was various teams put in place. And I see it's St Michael's House, the CRC as I call them, Vista, as well as HSE. They were the teams that are left in charge in your area. Now, since then, there is no denying it. Retention and recruitment within children's disabilities has been incredibly difficult, particularly in Dublin. But it's everywhere, but it's really difficult in Dublin. And to that end, I have to compliment St Michael's House Vista CRC because they addressed it. And they are actually doing their own arrangement of recruiting. They've actually gone ahead of where we were on the PDS roadmap. They couldn't wait for central office of the HSE to make a decision. They actually decided themselves as a collective, supported by, I have to say, by Olive Hanley, to actually say, all right, we know we're in a crisis here. So what they have started doing is they have started their international recruitment and they've set themselves a target to fill 96 posts across all the various levels, speech and language OT and psychology, and they are being supported by the HSE for that complete intensive recruitment drive. And it has been going on a long number of months now. When I say a long number of months, I'm talking about since June. And I see the fruits of it coming through on the teams. Little comfort for the families that have emailed you there, and I've asked you specific questions. Is early intervention still happening? No, they're all part of the one team now. So that early intervention team used to be a piece. It's now part of the wider CDNT team. But that skill set is still there. And that early intervention is still that priority, because that is one thing that we always did really, really well within the HSE and within all the various organisations. That was the one piece of the jigsaw that worked really, really well, was the early intervention. They mightn't have got the assessment, but got the intervention, they got the support, they felt listened to, and they were communicated to. So there's a lot of work going on there, as you have said, in relation to the response, the email, the telephone, just actually telling parents where they are on the, not on the list, when can they be expected to hear a call back from, and that they're not forgotten about. So that's why in last year's budget, there was money set aside that every single CDNT team needed to have proper admin, just actually to answer the emails and to answer the phone calls. That admin's positions are being filled out or have been filled out in your area to support the teams, because what we want is the clinicians not answering the phones, not doing emails. We want them doing face-to-face with the children. That's actually what we do want to happen. And to be fair, from what I can see that's happening on the ground, it is turning in CHO9. It has been the most challenging of all the CHOs, but they're working together as a collective, not in isolation. It's not Blakestown being one team and another team being another team. Actually, they're sharing resources, they're sharing the skill set, but they're also sharing a drive for recruitment in CHO9. And I can actually see that transcending down. And to be honest with you, I get uncomfortable when they say it will be 3 years before you're seen, because they cannot say that it will be 3 years. For the simple reason being, we're working off just 74% of the teams are actually populated. They're not by no manner of means. And there's some of the teams in your area that were as low as 50% of recruitment, but that is actually starting to increase up slowly but surely. So if that was to come to what I would say an acceptable level of clinical risk, that you could see that you are in a comfortable position, I would like there's a challenge there of these 96 posts. They have set themselves a target within 8 months to have them filled, and we are getting through them. And that's the collective working together, actually knowing what disciplines are needed from one team to the other. And that actually, I think they've taken ownership of it. I am supporting them with whatever they need to do, along with the HSE. And I can see the experience of the senior managers in Vista, CRC and St Michael's House actually being able to recruit in. I can see the difference of it, Senator. Little comfort to your parent today, but I can see in 6 months' time actually how we will have a pathway of real good skill sets. That, if you take, and I'll come back to you in the next piece of it.
Thank you, Minister. Senator.
Thanks, Minister. I'd like to see that progress over that you're seeing. I don't know how I get to see that if it's asking you a PQ every month, but I need to see that to tell the parents that are in contact with me, who are getting the communication that is 3 years and aren't getting communication that they used to have and need and want. And I hear you setting that target of 8 months and in 6 months, and I will hold you. I will hold you to that. I'll ask you again about the panel of recruitment. How is what's happening fitting in with that? I'll also take the opportunity to ask you about what's happening with the therapists that were to be brought back into the special schools. I have heard that Forsa, there has been an intervention by Forsa in that regard, and that we're not seeing those therapists back into the school. Can you comment on that, and whether there needs to be recruitment for those specific roles? Or is that the approach that you're going to take, or are they going to come from the CDNTs? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Minister, 1 minute to reply. Thank you.
All right, a lot to reply in a minute. So within that time, let me tell you, the other evening I did make a reference in my speech that Forsa had engaged. Since then, it's amazing what happens on the floor of the Dáil. The HSE and Forsa have met twice since Tuesday evening, and I hear that their progress is being made. So much so that I also spoke to John Carney of the NCSE this morning, and I will be issuing communication to all the special schools. I'm waiting for Bernard O'Regan to come back to me, Head of Disabilities, to tell me the outcome on it, because I assume everybody wants to see children getting an intervention and being supported, and I have no doubt the union will want that as well. So I don't want to assume, but I would be hopeful that there would be a common sense approach here, that we will see our therapists going into the schools. I have allocated 13.5 million to recruit those 133 to go back onto the teams. Yes, we're taking them from the teams, but they're not still part of a team. They are part of the team. They just happen to be spending so many hours of the day supporting the school piece on it. In relation to the panels, we've blown the panels open completely. The reason we had to do that is, why had I to flush through the panels? Because I need to get as many people into the CDNT teams so as I can support the schools. So we actually abandoned the panels. We just, to be fair to Damien McCallion within the HSE, he actually just went in there and he says we have to tear it apart and just blow it open to ensure that we can get everybody off panels and into either the CDNTs or back into the schools. And I think I have answered both.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, Senator Corrie.